If you have a vacation coming up soon, or maybe you want a few sort of foundational principles or tips for travel photography, this is the video tutorial for you. Okay, so let's begin this tutorial in one of my favorite spots in the world, and that's Matsumoto Castle in Nagano Prefecture or province of Japan. And as you can see, it's a very attractive castle. I always suggest that you plan your photo shoots to be just before sunset. So let me give you an example. Here, of course, the sun is just slightly shining on the castle, but as you can see, everything else is blue underneath the red walkway. And that means that we're sort of entering blue hour. So if we go here, this was probably maybe 10 minutes after this initial shot, and the whole world becomes blue. That's why we call it the blue hour. And here's another example of blue hour. So let's just go back here, is that after the sun sets, we get this really lovely blue wash to the entire picture. And this bluishness adds a lot of drama to the shot. Okay, now another thing is, maybe you do want to get rid of this modern building in the back. If so, well, let's just see what happens. We'll just quickly go to crop, and we'll just crop it out, like so. Okay, and that's not bad. That actually works well. It's true that you see a little bit of modern buildings in the background, but I'm definitely not going to be concerned about it. However, I do totally encourage cropping. I crop all the time. Okay, let's go to the third picture. Now, one thing that I do like to explain whenever we're dealing with, they're not really landscapes. You could call them, I guess you could call them cityscapes, but there are situations where we have a wide-angle lens. And often people say, well, where do I focus? It's really hard to figure that out. Essentially, what we want is to have really good focus on whatever's immediately in front of us, and that would be the red gate, as you can see, or sorry, the red drawbridge. But also we want to have really good focus on the background. And of course, in this instance, the background is the castle. So to do that, what I like to do is suggest that you photograph sort of 1/3 into the picture space. So if you focused right about here, at this area right here, and you chose f8 or f11, it's probably going to be the case that everything from in front of your camera, like right about here, and all the way to the castle is going to be sharply focused. A lot of people would say, well, why don't you just go to f22 or f32? Yeah, you're definitely going to have everything totally sharp, but there's always a little bit of a trade-off. When you go from f11 to f16 and then f22 and f32, if your lens will allow for it, you're progressively losing a certain amount of quality. Now, it's not too much. f11 and f8 tend to be the sweet spot in a lens. So if you're wanting to get as much in focus as possible, but still retain really good lens sharpness and lens quality, I would suggest f11 and whatever wide-angle lens you want. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So let's just review here. These two pictures are in blue hour. Blue hour is, if you're dealing in the morning, it's before sunrise, about a half an hour. If you're dealing with after sunset, it's about a half an hour after sunset. Here's golden hour, which is about a half an hour before sunset and about a half an hour after sunrise. And with regards to the ethics of deleting, that's something that you have to work on entirely. It's up to you, and just make sure that you come up with a good set of ethics for yourself. What do you delete? What do you not delete? What do you adjust? What do you not adjust? Okay, another tip is that I shot this photo with my iPhone. At the time, a couple months ago in February, I was using an iPhone 7 Plus, and these two pictures I photographed with my Fujifilm X Pro 2. So these actually have a richer feel to them, and they are sharper. I find that mobile device cameras sometimes have a little bit of a plasticky look, and you can actually overcome that using certain filters. However, the reason I bring this up is really important for us to make use of any camera that we have. So for example, I try to take a picture with my Fujifilm first, and then I may take the same picture with my iPhone. I like to get as many options as possible with as many devices as possible. Who knows, maybe someday Apple will look down upon me kindly and say, we need an iPhone shot of Matsumoto Castle. And then I can be featured on Shot on iPhone. We'll see. Okay, so I hope that helps. Now, one final thing about focus. I'll just switch over to here. For iPhone, you're not really dealing with focus so much, but for mirrorless cameras, such as my Fujifilm, the answer is yes. Let me zoom in here. What I would probably do is focus on the red walkway, naturally, and I would still maintain, if possible, an f8. Now, the big trade-off here, this is really important, is if f8 is going to cause any amount of motion blur in this swan, then I really need to change things. The most important thing here is that the swan is sharp. If it's slightly blurry, it's going to really detract from the picture. Now, there are exceptions, of course, artistic blur, but for this, I really want a sharp image. Okay, so let's just pop over to Lightroom and see what the parameters are for this picture. Okay, so I'm in Lightroom. I'm just going to pop into my album here and choose the picture. And by the way, if you use Lightroom CC, all you need to do is go down, press Edit, go to Info, and then we have our information here. So I'm just going to zoom in for you. Okay, so Fujifilm X-Pro 2, I was using my 23mm lens, and that is an equivalent 35mm view. And my shutter speed is 1/45 at f8, ISO 200. Now keep in mind that the reason I was able to successfully get a 1/45 of a second shutter speed is because I'm using a tripod. Okay, now if I wasn't using a tripod, I'd have to alter things quite a bit. For example, I'd want to make sure that I had a good sharp picture. So I would go to ISO auto, or I would jack up my ISO quite a bit, maybe to 1600, but auto will get the shot if you have wildlife. By the way, don't ever feel shameful that you're using auto ISO if you're photographing wildlife. You need speed. You need to get the picture super quickly, or that swan's going to disappear. I would still retain f8 if possible, and of course my shutter speed would be much faster, and that would be really good. So think of ISO as an amplifier, a stereo amplifier. When you increase the ISO, you actually have greater ability to photograph in darker areas with a faster shutter speed in order to handhold your camera. Again, if you have a tripod, that would be more beneficial for any type of landscape or cityscape shot. So I hope that helps. And yeah, if you have any of your own travel photography tips that you want to share with us, I would love for you to add them below. Please look out for the next video. I post pretty much every single day. And also, if you feel that this was valuable, please consider sharing it. And also a plug for the Japan Photo Tour this coming February. I have another one, and we're going to Matsumoto Castle and many other locations. So you can check that out at markhemmings.com. Okay, all the best with your photography. Talk soon.